Good morning to you, and I'm glad that you joined us today. It is exactly 10 a.m. here in Nairobi, East African time, and here are the latest news headlines from across the continent of Africa. We start with those from Kenya, and the Star newspaper, why DP Gachagua is in the eye of a storm. Opposition MPs threaten to lead anti-taxation campaigns in their regions. That story is on page 4 and 5 on the Star newspaper. Unga prices likely to rise next week, say millers, and that story is on page 2. These are not the kind of stories that Kenyans want to really wake up to, but seems to be the unfortunate reality there. High cost of living pushes Mathare residents to the streets. You'll find that on the inside pages, also in line with the unga prices that are set to rise. And high-powered lobbying as PSCs list CAS's jobs for Presidential Ruto to pick. And mystery death as praying man in his 20s fall from Holy Rock at Kit Mikai, that is in Kisumu County. The Standard newspaper, Joka Orogue DP case of Gachagua, whereas the deputy president has come off as a straight talker or a man who shoots from the hip. His remarks and actions are increasingly seen as unsuitable for a person occupying the second most powerful office. The story is on page 6. What it will take more than army to win bandit. Why it will take more than army to win a bandit war. You'll find that on page 12 and 13. True lies in Nigerian politics. Countdown continues as Nigerians set to go to the elections on the 25th. That is on Saturday this week. And Masid's fate now in the hands of Judge Muchelule. The story is on page 8. Sex abuse, a true price of cup of tea. That is an investigative piece that was done by the BBC. Quite disturbing, and some of the harrowing tales that some women had to go through in some of the British tea farms here. In Kenya, that story is on page 3. Another Madrid test for Klopp. You'll find that on the spot pages on page 40. Big names in race for CAS. We are seeing in the short list Dr. Evans Gishero, Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, James Songwai, Adeline Mwau, Samuel Tunoi, MacDonald Mariga, and all these names here lined up, and hoping that they will be picked. Okay, triplets joy for cancer survivor. That is also there. Uhuru loses allies. Mount Kenya clout as a political gambles fall flat. That story is on page 4-5. Wetangula law firm hired by electoral agency. Firm linked to House Speaker pre-qualified by IEBC. Okay, so that story is on page 6. Alone in death starting today, a special report after hundreds of bodies were listed by Nairobi City Council as unclaimed. Our teams identified some and tracked down their families. The story is on page 12. Ruto's idle land tax plan, a hot potato. The story is on page 7. So that is what we have in some of the newspapers from Kenya. We look at the news day from Zimbabwe. UN piles pressure on ED, and then ZEC clears air on the limitation report. The Daily News as well from Zimbabwe. Fears grow over Zimbabwe dollar slide as the poor feel the heat of the locals units weakening. I think it's just economic hard times are all over, but we know it is especially difficult there for Zimbabweans as they have been having a problem with their economy since many years ago. So the current situations and shocks in the market have done no good, of course. Now the Daily Monitor from Uganda, scientists unveil plan to keep maize clean. Okay, that's interesting. And then the News Vision also from Uganda, the New Vision, new details on OPM Iron Sheets saga. The Punch from Nigeria, latest poll puts Tinubu ahead of all. Naira chaos grounds economy, banks ration 200 Naira notes. Nigerians lament hardship, and protesters raised 2 Ogun banks and vandalize local government office. Wow. The Nation, customers overwhelm banks with cash demands. And poll tips Tinubu to win. I think Tinubu is running with the APC together. That is the party of President Muhammadu Buhari. The Citizen from Tanzania. ATCL situation normalizing soon. And then Health Ministry experts meet to draft IVF guidelines, and Tanzanians living abroad file petition over dual citizenship. A new AICC head outlines priorities. That's what we have on the front page of the Citizen from Tanzania. The New Times, this is from Rwanda. How high prices buoyed Rwanda coffee exports. International Monetary Fund. Deputy boss visits Rwanda. That's what we have there. And then I think that's what we have from the continent. So let's look at some of the papers from across the shores. And this is from Britain. Junior dogs to strike. That is what the Metro says. And Biden, we've got your back. He made a quiet visit to Ukraine, obviously for for security reasons. So Biden was in Ukraine. Surprise visit there. Now, the Daily Telegraph, also from the UK, send jets to Ukraine. Truss and Johnson tell Prime Minister, don't jettison Northern Ireland Protocol. Braverman wants Sunak, and Prime Minister condemns the global fang cuts to Dahal Classics. Nikki, we can let you rest now. Family worst fears come true as police confirm identity of body in a river. I think she had disappeared, and we've been covering this story. It has been making headlines now. So the body of this lady was found in a river, unfortunately. The Guardian, catastrophic failure led to Plymouth shootings. And then this is part of history. Biden's surprise visit to Kyiv raises spirits. The Daily Express, heartbroken family. Nikki, we can now let you rest now. And then Rishi attacks airbrushing of Roald Dahl books. And are you one of the millions who've lost a pension pots worth 26.6 billion pounds? And the I newspaper, backlash after Forbes says she would have voted against equal marriage. And then the Daily Mail, how Kate found her inner fashionista after turning 40. They always have something nice to say about Kate Middleton, and they normally have other things to say about Meghan Markle, but that is the British press for you there. Anyway, all right, so let's look at some weather updates, and we see what's happening. Maybe some conditions today, being Tuesday the 21st. Johannesburg is going to be mostly sunny with the temperature standing at 25 degrees Celsius. And then Nairobi, it will be partly cloudy with the temperatures highs of 29 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Accra, it will be mostly sunny with high temperatures at 32 degrees and low be at 21 degrees, and still staying with Martyrs weather. 2 million Malagasy in path of deadly cyclones. Now, the authorities in Madagascar on Monday say that at least 2 million people will be affected once Cyclone Freddy makes landfall in the eastern part of the country. Experts from the National Bureau of Risks and Catastrophes have predicted that the cyclone will hit 9 regions in the country. Emergency teams are preparing to deal with heavy rains, floods, even landslides in areas that will be affected. The cyclone has been churning in the Indian Ocean for weeks, and according to experts, its impact will be felt between the districts of Batumandri in the southeast and Manakara in the east coast. Those living in the areas have been advised to strengthen their doors and roofs, cut down dangerous trees, and stay indoors at the time of the cyclone. The island nation is among top 20 African countries most exposed to cyclones and vulnerable to disasters, according to the World Food Programme. The previous tropical storm to hit the country was Chineso, which struck in January this year. Some 30 people died and more than 40,000 were displaced and still staying with Martyrs weather. At this time, that has to do with the climate change. And Scotland is one of the first countries in the world to stamp up cash for loss and damage caused by climate change in poorer countries. When torrential rains came to the village of Mambundungu in Malawi, people's homes were washed away, but that was not the worst of it. The flood waters were infested with crocodiles and children were carried away by them, and that was really terrifying. Now, eventually in 2015, the villagers couldn't take any more and moved the entire community to higher ground. Then the new village began to flood too. But it is one of the poorest countries in the world, that is Malawi, and struggles to pay for the measures needed to repair the damage. And that's where the Scottish government has stepped in, promoting the notion that rich nations should help pay for damage from climate change in less developed countries. At the COP26 Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, it committed £2 million for loss and damage scheme. World Fast, a further £5 million is promised for April. In November, at COP27 in Egypt, other world leaders finally agreed they would follow that example. In Wambundugu, some of the money is being used to create flood defenses in the new settlement uphill, and this has gone a long way in helping the people, and the Scottish government's money is being spent in Malawi by organizations such as SCIV, the Scottish Catholic Aid Fund.